Today we're looking at Psalm 130. Out of the depths have I cried unto thee, O Lord. Lord, hear my voice. Let thine ears be attentive to the voice of my supplications. If thou, O Lord, shouldest mark us to iniquity, O Lord, who will stand? I'll stop there and say that we have the words Lord and Lord together, but one of them is Yahweh, the other one is Adonai. So again, he's speaking to two parts of the Trinity that later on we'll learn is the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. But he's speaking to Yahweh. He goes, out of the depths have I cried unto thee, O Yahweh. Adonai, hear my voice. Then he goes, if thou, Yahweh, shouldest mark us iniquity, O Adonai, who will stand? But there is forgiveness with thee, that thou mayest be feared. So forgiveness comes from those we do fear him, and he has chosen to forgive us. When we come for him with our sins, we shouldn't just come up with, well, I'm sorry I did that. I'm sorry that you're upset. You know, we should fear, because he could say, no. I wait for the Lord, my soul doth wait, and in his word do I hope. My soul waiteth for the Lord more than they that watch for the morning. The idea that you had watchmen who kept an eye out, who couldn't wait for the day. You know, it's dark, you don't know what's going to happen, you're really trying to see what's in the dark, but you're longing for the morning. And my soul waiteth for the Lord more than they that watch for the morning. I say more than they that watch for the morning. Let Israel hope in the Lord, for the Lord will be merciful and with him in plenteous redemption, and he will redeem Israel from all his iniquities. The idea is redemption by seeking it of the Lord. Pretty simple 8 verses. But the interesting thing is you have two persons of God being spoken of in the same psalm, Yahweh and Adonai. So check into the grid there. Very good. Going back to the story of Absalom and David, and today is a very sad day for them and for us that we're going through the grid, is that we had just seen, we're in this part of the story where Absalom has taken over Jerusalem. David leaves, so Absalom will not destroy the city. He takes with him hundreds of people. He has them organized into thousands and hundreds, kind of similar to what Moses did. He actually leaves Jerusalem and goes across the Jordan, and he's actually in a place called Mahanaim, and it's over south of Gilead, almost directly across from Shechem. So he goes to this place, and he's staying over there, which is on the border of the Ammonites. And so he is pulled away. He's pulled out of the city of David. He's across the Jordan in Mahanaim. And so he's there, and we have that, let me back up a little here. So he has also his counselors that remember that when David left, he left Zadok and Abiathar and their sons, and also left Hushai there as his eyes and ears. And Hushai was high up to the king, along with a fellow named Ahithophel. Absalom listens to Ahithophel, but he also respects Hushai, because Hushai was trusted by his dad, so he could give good counsel, and he said he was on Absalom's side. He's taking care. He was on the king's side, we'll say it that way. He's on the king's side of that. So he listens to these two counsels. He listens to Ahithophel, an idea of going after David and attacking while he's weak. Hushai says, no, if he's weak, he's going to be more dangerous because they're valiant men. You better get all of Israel to go after him, and you go lead that charge as king. Now, looking at it from what the Bible reveals, Ahithophel's idea would probably have worked to wipe out David. But Hushai's, we're going to see, does not work. Also, Hushai sends the sons of Zadok and Abiathar to tell David. So David knows not to stay where he's at, to go across and to settle himself up in Mahanaim, and he stays there, and he gets comforted there. There's a guy named Barzillai and Shobi. They bring beds and basins and vessels and wheat and barley and flour and corn. They bring honey and butter and sheep and cheese, and they bring these to the people to eat, for the people were hungry, thirsty in the wilderness, and weary. The state of the people tells them that Ahithophel would have been the better choice if you wanted to conquer. But now they're getting refreshed by these two men who bring in, and we're talking about feeding thousands of people. This isn't just a small group of men. It says here that David numbered the people that were with him and set captains of thousands and captains of hundreds. So he's setting up his troops, and he's setting up the people, captains of thousands. So that means you can't have captains of thousands if you don't have thousands. So again, he's got thousands of people who are over there. He's being taken care of on the other side of the Jordan. But we're going to see that Absalom is going to be on his way with all the forces from Dan to Beersheba, Bashir, and they're going to come down and come together against David. So this looks like it's a wipeout. It looks like it's going to be over. But David uses wisdom here. He takes a third part of the people that he's organized, his military forces that are thousands. He takes a third and gives them to Joab, a third to Abishai, and a third to Ittai. Remember, we met Ittai earlier. He's the one who was the Gittite who wanted to go, but David said, no, don't go, because you haven't been here very long. You shouldn't be a part of this battle. You know, you're too new. You don't have a vested interest. And he goes, where the king goes, I goes, and where the king dies, I die. That's kind of a paraphrase of what he did. So Ittai was given a third. He's giving thousands of people, military people, to work with. So we have Abishai, Joab, and Ittai are taking a third and a third and a third. And David wants to go, but the people say, no, you're worth 10,000 of us. All they're trying to do is kill you. You stay in the city, and we will go. So David stays in Mahanaim. I'm going to get that pronounced better for tomorrow. Mahanaim. So he goes in Mahanaim, and he stays there. And again, he's on the other side of the Jordan, across from Shechem. So he's not that far away, but he's still over in this other area close to Amnon. So he stays there, and then people go out to battle in 3 groups, and the king decides to stay back. But the king tells them, deal gently with Absalom. Do not kill Absalom. When you go into this fight, don't kill my son. And he says this to the 3 generals, but all the other troops hear it. They know that this is an order by the king. So the people go into battle, and it's a wooded area. It isn't a flat area. It isn't a place where, you know, you always see in biblical movies where it's flat. It looks like a desert. But this place was wooded. It also seemed to have crevices. It seemed to have cracks. It seemed to have, you know, a very dense wooded area, which was very dangerous to fight in. You know, you're trying to charge, and people are hitting trees, or they're getting caught up in brush, or they're falling into crevices, or different things are happening in the area where you're fighting. In fact, the Bible says that the people went out for battle, and the battle was in the wood of Ephraim, and the people of Israel were slain before the servants of David, and there was a great slaughter that day, 20,000 men. So Israel meets David in this wooded area, and 20,000 men die of Israel, and they die, and there was a slaughter that day of 20,000 men. Now, I don't know for sure which is which. I just said of Israel, but really here was 20,000 men. We don't know how many of one or how many of another. It doesn't seem possible that David's people would only kill 20,000, so I misspoke there. But the battle was scattered over the face of the country, and the wood devoured more people that day than the sword. People fighting in the woods, hitting the woods, falling off horses, falling down crevices, getting caught up in trees and all kind of stuff. In fact, we find, unfortunately, that that's what happens to Absalom. Remember, Absalom was tall, broad-shouldered, but he also had this big, long mane of hair that went down his back, very thick. He goes charging into this wooded area, and after a while, he gets caught up, and he gets caught in a tree by his hair, and he's hanging there, suspended between sky and earth by his hair, and that had to be very painful. You know, he's trying to, maybe holding on the branches and stuff, but he's held up by his hair, and he maybe doesn't have his sword, or he's dropped his sword, or something's happened. He cannot loose himself from these trees. And there's a certain man who came and saw it. He didn't do anything, and he told Joab. And Joab said, well, why thou sawest him, why didn't you smite him there to the ground? I would have given you 10 shekels of silver and a girdle. Remember, Joab and Absalom didn't get along very well. They were not nice neighbors, and Joab probably thought he should have respected David more, but we do know that to get David's attention after Absalom was brought back, that he set on fire Joab's field to get Joab's attention. Joab was not bringing Absalom in to see David, so Absalom sets his field on fire, and therefore he goes to see Joab, introduces him to David, and David meets him. That was in, I have to think it's at the end of 14. And Joab came to the king and told him, and when he had called for Absalom, he came to the king and bowed himself to the ground before the king, and the king kissed Absalom. But there was that, again, that idea of, I'm not doing this for family. I'm doing this because you burned down part of my field. Probably a lot of strong feelings about that. But I hate to speculate a little bit. We can go back and kind of look and see and try to connect some dots. You know, I wouldn't split a church over it. It just looks like that's the way it is. And so Joab saw him there, and he's wondering why you didn't kill him. And he responds, didn't you hear the king? The king said that anybody who kills him, he doesn't want him killed. And I don't care how much money you give me, but he told you, Abishai and Attiah, beware, don't touch that young man. Otherwise I should wrought falsehood against mine own life, for there is no matter hid from the king. He goes, even if I did this, it wouldn't be hid from the king would find out. So Joab said, I will not tarry this with thee. He didn't say, we're not doing this now. It's basically what he's saying. And he took 3 darts and thrust them into the heart of Absalom. He kills Absalom. Then the young men that are with him go and also finish him off with coup de grace. They start stabbing him while he's in the tree. And they took Absalom and cast him into a great pit of wood and laid him there with a great heap of stones. And all Israel fled, everyone to their tent. So we see that Absalom has been killed. There were 10 armor bearers that were with Joab, and Joab called for him to be killed. So they slew him, and remember, they put him in a pit of wood and then put great stones around him, and all Israel fled. Now there's a time coming up when Ahimaaz, who, remember, Ahimaaz was the son of Zadok, going back and forth from this battle, and he is there, and he wants to go tell the king what the Lord had, that the Lord has avenged him on his enemies, that the battle's over. And Joab says, thou shalt not bear tidings this day, but thou shalt bear tidings another day. For this day thou shalt not bear tidings, because the king's son is dead. So Ahimaaz knows that the king's son is dead. So he doesn't have him go, but he tells another guy named Cushi. So Cushi is to go, and so Cushi takes off and runs. Then Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok, said to him, but however, let me, I pray thee, also run after Cushi. Wherefore wilt thou run, my son, seeing that thou hast no tidings? But he kept pushing him and pushing him, so he goes, run. So Ahimaaz ran over the plains and went after Cushi. And David's sitting there at the gate with the watchman, and they see 2 men running. And the watchman cries and told the king, if he be alone, there is tidings in his mouth. And he came apace and drew near. So the idea, if you see 1 man running, he's just a messenger. He's bringing you information. If you see 2 more, there's probably something else going on. Maybe they're just traveling or whatever. But he see this man running, and the watchman says saw another man running, and the watchman called to the porter and said, behold, another man is running. And the king said, he also brings tidings. The watchman said, methinks the running of the afore is like the running of Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok. And the king said, he is a good man and cometh with good tidings. So they must see these guys run back and forth a lot, so they recognize, their running styles. And so he looks like Ahimaaz. So, and he's a good man. He's going to have some good news. So he gets there, and he goes before the king. All is well. Blessed be the Lord thy God, for that which has delivered up the men and lifted up their hand against my lord the king. So the God has given victory. Now the king says, is the young man Absalom safe? And Ahimaaz says, when Joab sent the king's servant to my servant, I saw a great tumult, and I knew not what it was. Now he's kind of hedging himself. Joab told him the king was dead. But he's kind of hedging it a little bit. Maybe they're going to talk later or something. I don't know, whatever, why he does it. He doesn't say. But he says, I didn't see it happen, which is a bit of a fudge. He didn't see it happen, but he also knows because Joab told him. And Cushi comes in. It says, tidings unto the Lord, for the Lord has avenged you this day, all those that rose up against me. He says the same kind of greeting that Ahimaaz did. And the king said to Cushi, is the young man safe? And Cushi said, the enemies of the Lord the king and all that rise up against thee to do thee hurt, be as that young man is. And the king was moved and went into his chamber over the gate and wept. And he went. Thus he said, O my son Absalom, my son Absalom, my son Absalom, God, that I would have died for thee, O Absalom, my son, my son. Again, stopping there, that how poignant this moment is. We could camp on that last verse and just sit there and feel, almost as if you were in a room with a man who lost his son, to feel the pain that David has for the loss of his son. No matter if he was a conspirator, no matter if he was trying to take the kingdom, no matter if he was doing the things he did, David was still his father and Absalom was still his son. and we go and see this, is that, you know, these two men bring tidings. Ahimaaz, you know, kind of seems like he's cushioning the blow. I didn't see anything. Maybe he's going to soften him up a little or give him some time to process information. Cushi just comes right out, you know. And so, and again, it's very possible that Cushi was more on Joab's side. Joab obviously didn't like Absalom, but didn't see him as God's anointed. He's just an enemy of the king. You know, a very political move. You know, and I'm drawing a little bit of inference here. Him as being the son of Zadok, probably more on the personal side of the king. A man's son has died, whereas the other guy is the enemy of the king, has died. So is Absalom the son of the king, or is he the enemy of the king? And we get two different reports based upon where you stand on that coin. And so he goes, Absalom, O Absalom, would to God that I had died for thee, O Absalom, my son, my son. Taking these moments to feel what the person's going through is very important, that we do that as Christians. Sometimes, like I say, we race to the cross and we don't do the grid. And there's some days when we just need to sit and feel. And this is one of those days. Thank you.